I've held the hand of a teenage girl as she bled out from an attempt to end her life, whispering to me between gasps that she hoped her father would finally be sorry. I've cradled a newborn in a cold delivery room while the mother screamed, abandoned mid-labor by a man who swore he loved her. I thought I had seen the worst the world had to offer, but nothing could prepare me for what I discovered at my own son's wedding. The moment my 7-year-old granddaughter clutched my arm, looked up at me with wide, frightened eyes and whispered, "Grandma, don't let her make me disappear." I thought maybe it was nerves, the buzz of sugar, or just too much attention. Kids say strange things all the time, especially at weddings. But Emily wasn't that kind of child. She wasn't dramatic. She didn't seek attention. She was the quiet kind, the one who spoke through drawings and stayed close to the corners of her room. And that day, she wouldn't let go of my hand. We were seated in the third pew of St. Cecilia's Church, a stone relic from another century nestled into the snowy pines of Ashbrook, Oregon. A warm glow flickered from rows of candelabras, casting soft light across the wooden pews and floral arrangements that smelled faintly of eucalyptus and sugar roses. A string quartet played Clair de Lune as guests whispered and smiled politely behind satin gloves and tailored coats. It was, in every sense of the word, a beautiful wedding. And yet, I couldn't shake the weight pressing on my chest. It wasn't just Emily's strange whisper. It was something about the bride, Tiffany Reeves, or soon-to-be Tiffany Holloway. She was everything a modern bride should be, graceful, glowing, and surgically put together. Her beaded white gown hugged her in all the right places, and her hair was pinned in a sleek twist, not a strand out of place. She moved through the aisle like she'd done it before, rehearsed it, not the wedding, the role. Her smile was flawless, but her eyes, they were empty, not in a sad way, not in a shy way, in a way that made me feel watched, not welcomed. From across the altar she caught my eye, and for a single second, just one, her smile dropped, like she knew exactly what I was thinking. Then it came back, wider than before. I pressed my lips together and turned back to Emily, who was now sitting on the pew with her sketch pad balanced on her lap. She was drawing furiously with a small purple pencil, her eyes darting up to the altar, then back to the page. "What are you drawing, sweetheart?" I asked softly, brushing a stray curl behind her ear. She didn't answer. She turned the page away from me and leaned closer, her voice barely audible. "She's standing behind Daddy, but she doesn't have eyes." I froze. "What do you mean?" Emily didn't explain. She simply pressed the pencil harder against the paper until the lead snapped, then closed the notebook without a word. I tried to stay calm. Maybe it was just a child's imagination. Maybe Tiffany's smoky eye makeup had unsettled her. But my hands were starting to sweat despite the chill in the church air. The string quartet paused. A murmur rose as the bridal procession prepared to begin. Tiffany stepped forward, and all heads turned. I leaned down to pick up Emily's comb, which she must have dropped under the pew, a small ivory piece, old, elegant, carved with roses. She carried it everywhere, a little keepsake from my dresser that she had claimed as her own. She said it made her feel safe. But it hadn't fallen near her. It was under the opposite end of the pew, just beside Tiffany's clutch, resting on the floor in the space between her and my son Jason. Odd. I picked it up slowly, eyes narrowing. Then I saw something else, a corner of folded paper sticking out from the clutch's side pocket. Just an inch. No words visible, just there, waiting. A violin rang out, announcing Tiffany's grand entrance, and the entire congregation rose to their feet. But I didn't stand. I watched her glide past me in that perfect dress, that flawless mask, and the chill that ran through my spine had nothing to do with the snow. I didn't see much of the ceremony after that. While everyone else beamed and dabbed at their eyes, I stood still, with Emily's ivory comb clenched in my hand, heart pounding. My eyes followed Tiffany's every move. The way she tilted her chin as Jason spoke his vows. The way her lips pressed just a bit too tight at the word forever. And, all the while, Emily sat frozen beside me, her small shoulders tense, her hands tucked under her dress like she was hiding from something. She's standing behind Daddy, but she doesn't have eyes. The words echoed again in my head. I used to tell myself not to overthink the things children say. I'd worked pediatric wards long enough to know that kids say strange things all the time, that their brains were built for dreams, not logic. But Emily wasn't a child who made up scary stories. If anything, she kept too much inside. The kiss came and went. The applause rippled down the pews. Tiffany and Jason turned to face the crowd, newly minted husband and wife. And Emily just stared at the floor. 2 weeks earlier, when Jason first brought Tiffany to dinner, I had my reservations. It was a small get-together, just the 5 of us. Jason, Tiffany, Emily, Rachel, his ex-wife, and me. Yes, Rachel was still invited to things like this. She and I had never stopped being family, even if the marriage papers had. She was the mother of my only grandchild, and frankly, she was more of a daughter to me than most could ever dream of. Jason thought it would be healthy to have everyone together, some illusion of unity before the wedding. Tiffany had arrived with a bottle of wine, a box of French macarons, and a dazzling smile that could slice glass. Everything she said was measured, polished, the kind of charm that makes you feel like you're already being sold something. "Oh, Mrs. Holloway, Margaret, right? I've heard so much about your famous mashed potatoes." "Emily, sweetheart, I brought you something special. Look, a glitter sticker book." But Emily wouldn't touch the book, wouldn't even look at her. She sat at the far end of the table, curled sideways on her chair, knees pulled up, eating in silence. When Tiffany asked if she wanted to sit closer, Emily shook her head violently and whispered, "I don't want to." Jason had laughed it off. "She's just being shy." But Rachel and I locked eyes, and I knew we were both thinking the same thing. This wasn't shyness. It was fear. Back in the present, the wedding guests spilled out into the snow-dusted courtyard. Warm breath hung in the cold air like steam. Cameras clicked, shoes crunched on salt-covered pavement, and someone passed out tiny glasses of champagne from a silver tray. Jason and Tiffany stood in the center like actors on a set, surrounded by applause. I stayed near Emily, one hand always touching her shoulder, grounding her. "Do you want to say congratulations to your dad?" I asked gently. She shook her head. "No, thank you." I didn't push her. She bent down to tie her shoe, though it didn't look untied, and that's when it slipped from her coat, her sketchbook. It hit the pavement with a soft flap. A gust of wind opened it. Before she could scoop it up, I saw the page. A black crayon had been used to draw a figure. A man in a suit, Jason, was standing at the altar. Behind him, larger than him, was a woman in a long white gown. No eyes, just 2 gaping black holes. Her hands, long and sharp, rested on Jason's shoulders. But what struck me wasn't the missing eyes. It was the smile, drawn in bright red pencil, wide and jagged across the face, like a cut. Like blood. Emily looked up and snatched the book from my hands, clutching it to her chest. "I didn't mean to draw it that way," she whispered, "but that's what I saw." I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but a voice interrupted us.
"There's my sweet girl." Tiffany appeared beside us, all white silk and faux warmth. She crouched down, forcing a wide grin. "Come on, Emmy, don't be shy. Daddy wants a photo."
Emily flinched. I stepped between them. "She's not feeling up to it," I said. "Maybe later." Tiffany's smile froze. Not a flinch in her body, but her eyes, they flashed. Just for a second. A flicker of something cold. Then she rose, brushed non-existent dust from her sleeve, and turned on her heel. "Of course. You're always so protective, Margaret," she said without turning back. It's sweet." She walked off, hair shimmering like spun glass in the winter sun. Emily's fingers slipped into mine. "Grandma," she whispered, "I don't think she's real." The wedding ended with brittle smiles and hollow toasts. I left early. Jason didn't seem to notice. He was too busy basking in his new beginning. Or maybe, like the rest of us, he just wanted the day to end before anything else could go wrong. Emily came home with me that night. Rachel had agreed. She trusted that Emily needed space and someone who would listen, really listen. She barely touched her dinner, just picked at the mashed potatoes and pushed peas around her plate. "Stomach hurts," she murmured. I gave her a warm towel for her belly and tucked her into the guest bed, the one she called her room now. She lay there in her favorite pajama set with tiny moons on the sleeves, and the sketchbook clutched under one arm like a stuffed animal. I was about to turn off the bedside lamp when she looked at me and asked, "Grandma, where's the box she gave you?" I paused at the door. "What box?" "The one with the spinning lady. I saw it in your bag." She meant the wedding gift. Tiffany had handed it to me right after the ceremony, insisted I open it at home. I hadn't even remembered to look at it. It was still in my purse, wrapped in soft white tissue and tied with a satin ribbon. "I'll bring it in," I said. I don't know why I felt uneasy. Maybe it was the look on Emily's face. Not scared exactly, but wary, like she was trying to figure out whether she'd be safer with it near or far. I carried the box in and sat on the edge of the bed. It was heavier than it looked, cream porcelain with faded gold trim, shaped like a little dome chapel. An antique design, European, the kind that looked like it belonged on a widow's mantle in a ghost story. Emily sat up straighter, clutching her knees. "Don't wind it." I blinked. "You've never seen it play." "I heard it." "You did?" "In the church, when you picked up my comb." I didn't remember hearing anything, just the violin, the murmurs, the click of Tiffany's heels. But my fingers were already on the brass crank. I turned it once, twice, a third time. Then I opened the lid. The ballerina inside twirled slowly, graceful, in a dress too white to be real. And from within, the melody began to play. At first it was faint, just a lullaby, 3 notes rising, 1 note falling, a music box tune like hundreds I'd heard before. But as the notes unfolded, something gripped my chest. I knew this tune. I didn't know from where, but my breath caught, and a chill crawled up my spine. Not a sense of déjà vu, this was memory, buried and unwelcome. I closed my eyes, and I saw it. Flashback, 20 years earlier. The night shift at Mercy Hill Psychiatric. I was 47, working the trauma ward. Room 216. A girl, about 17, admitted after a suicide attempt. No name, no family, just a slip of a thing with scars on her wrists and a scream that never came out. She wouldn't speak to anyone, wouldn't eat. But she carried one thing, a music box, that same tune, over and over. Every hour she'd wind it again. Some nurses asked for her to be sedated. It was driving them mad. But I never forgot her face. Blonde, pale, eyes like polished stone. When I offered her a blanket one night, she looked. I disappear a little more. The music stopped. Back in my warm, dim bedroom, the ballerina tilted slightly to the side, stuck in mid-spin. Emily was staring at the box like it might speak. "That's the sound I meant," she whispered. That one. The one that makes people go missing. I shut the lid. My hand was trembling. I didn't say a word. I stood up, carried the box to the hallway, and locked it inside my bedroom closet. I didn't even want it under the same roof. But the tune echoed in my mind long after I lay in bed, and I could still hear her voice, that girl from 20 years ago, the one with no name and a ballerina box. When it plays, I disappear a little more. There are many things a woman learns to do subtly once she turns 60, slipping out of a wedding unnoticed, watching people when they think you're not, appearing forgetful when, in truth, you're listening harder than ever. And on a Monday morning, you learn how to walk into a church with a purpose, but not too much purpose. I brought a scarf with me, beige with red flowers, claimed I left it behind at the wedding. Truth was, I never wore it. I just needed an excuse to return to St. Cecilia's and walk through the place with different eyes. It was snowing again, a light dusting that made the pine branches bow slightly and the stone steps shine like slate. The church was quiet, too quiet. No organ, no chatter, no rustling of hymnals. Just the hollow echoes of my heels on the marble as I stepped inside. The candles were mostly out. The scent of rose incense still lingered faintly. I moved straight to the pew where I'd sat with Emily, 3rd row from the front, right side. My palms started to sweat. I knelt slowly, eyes scanning beneath the wooden bench, the worn cushion, the cracks between the floorboards. Something shimmered. Not metal, paper. A torn slip of parchment wedged under the edge of the cushion. The corner was burned as if it had been lit and snuffed too late. I pulled it free, heart thudding like a kettle drum in my chest. It was only a half sheet. The rest had been ripped or destroyed, but what remained chilled me more than the wind outside. The writing was careful, slanted, as if written by someone who learned penmanship from a private tutor. The girl is not compliant. She remembers more than expected. Remove her before she speaks to anyone who matters. That was all. No name, no date. But my hands trembled like I was holding a murder weapon. The girl is not compliant. Remove her. Who was the girl? Emily? Tiffany? Me? I folded the paper and slipped it into my purse. Just then, a soft voice floated from the rear of the church. Mrs. Holloway, is everything all right? I turned and found Father Coleman standing near the organ loft, his thick black coat draped over one shoulder. Father, I said, recovering, I thought I left my scarf, but I must have taken it after all. He approached slowly. He was in his 70s now, but still walked with the discipline of a man who once knelt for hours without complaint. He nodded once, eyes kind. She was beautiful, wasn't she, the bride? I didn't answer. Instead, I asked, do you remember her? Before the wedding, I mean. He hesitated, a pause, a long one. Then, she came to confession here, years ago, 5, maybe 6. Sat in that pew, actually, same one you were in. My stomach turned. What did she confess? I asked carefully. He shook his head. You know I can't tell you that. Of course, I said, but did she seem well? Another pause. She asked me if evil was something we're born with, or if it grows over time like a root under the floorboards. He looked at me, then added, almost absently, she said she could feel it moving. My throat went dry. He gave a polite smile. Is your granddaughter feeling better? Yes, I lied. Good. Lovely child. She reminds me of someone. He didn't finish that sentence. I thanked him
But the fire in my chest didn't come from the snow.
the note was still warm in my hand, though I'd folded it tightly. And the name I hadn't let myself say, not even in my own mind, finally surfaced. Tiffany. The girl from room 216. I was sure of it now, but what haunted me more than anything was the sense that she remembered me, too. It had been years since I climbed into the attic. I told myself it was because of my knees, or the dust, or that I didn't need anything up there. But the truth was, some places you avoid because you know they'll remember what you tried to forget. The wooden ladder creaked under my weight as I climbed, flashlight in one hand, heart in the other. A weak bulb flickered overhead, doing little to push back the gloom. Stacks of boxes, Christmas decorations, a bin of old blankets, and one crate at the very back, near the eaves, covered in a gray sheet. Mercy Hill Files. I'd labeled it years ago, sloppy handwriting in black marker. I pulled it out and sat cross-legged on the floor, knees protesting every inch. The air smelt like old paper and insulation, but underneath that, something else, something chemical, faint. A memory of hospital floors and antiseptic, of soft crying through a closed door. I opened the lid. Inside, a row of dusty folders, a cracked 3-ring binder, a stack of old shift notes yellowed with age. Mercy Hill had shut down 5 years after I left. Lawsuits, lost records, more rumors than truth. No one wanted to talk about it, but I had kept some of my own notes, off the record, for myself, especially for room 216. I flipped until I found the right section. Date, October 12th. Time, 1:07 a.m. Patient, unknown, no ID. Notes, ear me male, approximately 16 to 18 years. Bracelets, arrived unconscious, multiple shallow lacerations. Fleece, with personal item, antique music box. Ramifications, worker, speech rare. One phrase repeated. It plays, I go away. Yes, vacant, but tracking movement. Miles only when spoken to by women, flinches from men. No name, no family, no record. But there was a sticker on the page, a torn fragment of hospital tape, and beneath it, taped lightly into the paper, was something else, a folded envelope. I frowned. I didn't remember placing anything there. I peeled it off carefully. No address, no postmark, just aged paper folded in 3. Inside was a Polaroid photo. A teenage girl sat on a hospital bed, wearing a paper gown, shoulders hunched, legs curled up, hair long, light blonde. A music box sat beside her. She was looking straight into the camera. Her eyes were blacked out. Literally, someone had scratched them out with ink. 2 harsh circles. I flipped the photo over. 5 words were scrawled on the back, angry and jagged, written in red ink. You said I could forget, but I didn't. Not you, not her. I sat frozen for a long moment, photo in one hand, breath held in my throat. Her face, even without the eyes, especially without the eyes. I recognized the curve of the mouth, the chin, the silence. It was her. Tiffany. The girl from room 216. Only now, she had a name. And she hadn't forgotten anything. Rachel opened the door before I had a chance to knock twice. She looked tired, more than usual. Her hair was tied back in a messy bun, and she wore Jason's old college sweatshirt, one I remembered folding 100 times when he was still living under my roof. Hey, she said quietly. Hi, I answered, giving Emily's hand a squeeze. Rachel leaned down and hugged her daughter tight, burying her face in her hair. I saw her blink hard, holding something in. Go wash up, sweetie. I made your favorite, mac and cheese with real bacon. Emily brightened and disappeared into the hallway, sketchbook still clutched under her arm. Rachel stood back and let me in. We sat in the kitchen while the pasta boiled, and I could feel the weight of everything unsaid hanging in the room like the smell of burnt toast. She's been quiet lately, I said. She's been off. Rachel replied,
"You noticed it too." I nodded. Rachel walked to a cabinet, paused, then opened the top cupboard and pulled out a long white box, like something from a bakery. She placed it carefully on the counter. This was left on my porch the morning of the wedding. No note, no delivery label, just this. It was tied with a gold ribbon, now curled and flattened. I could see where someone had scratched at the edges. Rachel had clearly debated opening it before. Jason didn't send it. He swore he didn't. But when I saw the handwriting on the tag, she handed me a small square of paper tucked beneath the ribbon. My stomach dropped. To Emily. Written in perfect block print. Cold, mechanical, like it came from someone trying to imitate love. I looked up at Rachel. You didn't let her open it? No, I kept it out of sight. I didn't want to feed any of this. But now, she sighed, now I don't think I was protecting her at all. I opened the box. There was no cake inside, just a single envelope. Pale pink, no stamp, no return address. Rachel stood beside me as I slid it open. Inside a folded sheet of thick drawing paper. The image made my blood run cold. It wasn't drawn by a child. This was adult hand, practiced and purposeful. In black charcoal and red pastel, it showed a small girl inside a bird cage. Not a cute cage, a twisted one, the kind you see in nightmares. The girl was curled in the corner, her face buried in her knees. Outside the cage, spinning in an endless loop, was a ballerina, delicate, faceless. And at the bottom of the cage, my address, my house. I turned the paper over. On the back, in that same mechanical block print, one sentence. You think you're keeping her safe. You're only locking her in with me. Rachel covered her mouth. I dropped the drawing like it burned. She's threatening the child, I said, trying to keep the quiver out of my voice. She wants us to think we've done something wrong, like it's our fault. Rachel stared at the box like it might grow teeth. I don't understand. Why now? I wanted to tell her what I'd found. The note, the attic file, the photo. I wanted to tell her that I thought Tiffany, Jason's new wife, was the same girl I once nursed back to life 2 decades ago. A girl who disappeared without a trace. But something stopped me, because if that girl had grown into Tiffany, then somewhere between the psych ward and the wedding altar, something in her had gone completely dark. I folded the letter back into the envelope and handed it to Rachel. Lock this away. Somewhere cold and dry. Don't throw it out. Don't show it to Jason. Not yet. Rachel nodded, holding the box like it was radioactive. In the hallway, I heard Emily singing softly to herself, a tune I recognized, 3 notes rising, 1 note falling, the music box melody. The envelope was waiting in my mailbox when I got home. No stamp, no return address, just 1 word across the front, written in perfect uppercase letters. Remember. I stood there for a long minute, the wind biting at my coat, the trees creaking in the cold. I didn't move until I was inside with every lock turned behind me. At the kitchen table, I slid the envelope open. Inside, a single black USB drive. No label, no markings. I hesitated. There are some lines you don't cross lightly. Some doors you don't open unless you're prepared for what's behind them. But that line had been crossed the moment Emily whispered about disappearing. The moment Tiffany put her hand on Jason's chest and called herself family. I plugged the drive into my laptop. There was 1 file, 216confession.wav. My throat went dry. I clicked play. At first, nothing, just static, a low hum, the sound of a room too quiet. Then, breathing, soft, measured, like someone sitting still in a chair, waiting for permission to speak. Then, her voice. Calm, young, broken, but underneath, something sharp. They think I'm asleep.
They always think I'm asleep. Room 216, that's me. They asked me to tell them how I feel, so I did. I feel nothing, except when the music plays. Sound, faint music box chime, same melody as before. That's when she comes back, the woman in white. She watches me through the mirror. I think she used to be me. I don't like mirrors anymore. Long silence. There was a woman, an old one. She tried to be kind. She gave me soup and said my name didn't matter. But it does. It always did. Because I remember her eyes. Margaret. My name, spoken in a voice 20 years younger, but unmistakably hers. Tiffany. Even then she'd remembered me. I felt my body go still. The recording continued. She thought I could be fixed, but I wasn't broken. I was emptied. I filled the empty with something new. Now I see things they don't. The girl, the small one, she has fire in her. He made her, but I'll unmake her. I'll pull her apart like threads, not out of cruelty, just balance. The music box plays louder for 5 seconds, then cuts. Margaret, you should have let me die. I remember everything. The file ended, just static after that, dead air. I sat there, unable to breathe. The window rattled from the wind, and I realized I hadn't moved for over 5 minutes. My hands had gone cold on the laptop keyboard. It wasn't just a threat. It was a memory, sharpened like a blade, handed back to me as punishment. I had tried to help her once. I'd cleaned her wounds, held her hand, called her sweetheart. She hadn't forgotten that kindness. She'd hated it, because kindness had made her live, and now she meant to pay it back in the only currency she understood. Pain. It was sometime after 2 when I heard it, a whisper, too soft to be speech, too rhythmic to be wind. I sat up in bed, heart thudding. The old house was still except for the occasional groan of wood, and I slipped on my robe and stepped out into the hallway, bare feet quiet on the wooden floor. Emily was standing at the far end, her back to me, facing the tall mirror that hung between the guest room and the stairs. The mirror was antique, my mother's. Thick frame, brass corners, the kind of thing people stop in front of when they want to remember what they used to look like. Emily was staring straight into it, her hands at her sides, her head tilted slightly. "Emily?" I whispered. She didn't move. "Honey, it's Grandma." Still nothing. Then, in the softest voice, almost like a breath, I heard her speak. "You're not supposed to be out yet." My blood ran cold. I stepped closer, slowly. "Emily? Who are you talking to?" She blinked, looked up at me like she'd just woken from a nap. "No one. I was just listening." "Listening to what?" She pointed to the mirror. "She's in there." I crouched beside her. The air in the hallway felt wrong. Not cold, not warm, just hollow. Like sound didn't quite echo right. What did she say? Emily didn't answer right away. Then she said you were the one who opened the door. I reached up and turned the mirror to face the wall. Emily didn't resist. She simply backed away, watching it as if expecting it to turn back on its own. "I think that's enough for tonight," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Let's go back to bed." She nodded and slipped her hand into mine, but as we turned to walk away, I saw it. Behind where the mirror had been, scratched into the plaster wall, were marks. deep, parallel, like fingernails, dragging from the inside out. After I tucked Emily in, I sat alone in the living room with the USB still plugged into my laptop. I'd listened to the file more than once now. I knew every breath, every break in Tiffany's voice, but something was bothering me. I turned the volume up, put on headphones, and this time I listened not to the voice, but beneath it, under the hum, under the static, just beneath the melody of the music box, another voice, so faint I almost missed it. High, thin, a child's voice, repeating a name. Emily, Emily, Emily. I froze. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. There was never a second person in room 216, never another patient assigned. And yet, the voice was there, calling her, over and over, like an echo sent forward through time, or something clawing backward from wherever it had been caged. My phone buzzed. A message from Rachel. Just one line. Did Emily sleepwalk before? I stared at the screen. Then I looked back toward the hallway where the mirror had been, and I realized something I hadn't dared admit. This isn't just about Tiffany anymore. Whatever was in her, she's not carrying it. She left it behind. I didn't sleep that night. I spent it walking the house with a flashlight, covering every mirror, every reflective surface, even the microwave door. I pulled the music box from the closet and buried it beneath the garden bench outside in the snow. At 4 a.m., I made coffee. At 5:15, I called Father Coleman. He didn't answer. I drove to the church anyway. He opened the sacristy door in a robe, surprised but unsurprised. "It's about the girl, isn't it?" he asked before I said a word. I nodded. "I need her name, the one she used in confession." He hesitated, just a second. Then, "Tiffany Claire Rains." My lungs locked. Rains, the surname on the tag from the psych ward admission. I'd only seen it once, before it was blacked out. I thanked him and left. Back home, I dialed Jason's number. He didn't answer, of course, so I called Rachel. She did. Her voice was clipped. "What happened now? Where's Emily? In her room? Why?" I told her. The USB, the recordings, the sketchbook, the mirror, the scratches. She went quiet. "I need you to bring her here, before sunset." She didn't argue. Jason called back 10 minutes later, agitated. "What is all this?"
Rachel's packing a bag like there's an earthquake coming. I sent him the USB file before he could finish his sentence. 5 minutes later, he called again. "We'll be there in an hour." But they weren't, because at 6:41 p.m., I went to Emily's room, and she was gone. No window open, no creak of the floorboards, no coat missing from the hook, only the sketchbook, open to a single page. Emily stood inside a mirror, hand pressed to the glass from the other side. She wasn't afraid in the picture, just sad. The attic was dark when I opened the hatch. Too dark. I climbed the steps slowly, flashlight trembling in my grip. When I reached the top, I smelled it. Dust. And lavender. Lavender was the scent we used to calm trauma patients. Room 216 had always smelled like lavender. And there she was. Not Emily, but a girl. 16, maybe 17. Hair long and tangled, face turned away, sitting in front of the music box, spinning it, letting it play. When it plays, I disappear a little more. Her voice was the same, older, younger, timeless. She turned. Her eyes were scratched out, just like the photo, just like the drawing. "You remember now,"
she said. I nodded. You were the girl. She tilted her head. And you were the one who thought I could be saved. I tried. No, she whispered. You paused it. You didn't end it. She stood. The room got colder. So I stayed. In the walls. In the glass. In the girl. She lets me see. Where is she? I asked. Sleeping, like I used to. But the dreams are better in her. I stepped forward. You can't have her. I already do. Then take me instead. That stopped her. She blinked slowly. You'd trade her life for yours? Yes. She smiled. Not kind, but not cruel either. You finally understand. I reached for the music box. She didn't stop me. I wound it once, twice, 3 times. The girl screamed, not in pain but in rage, a scream that shook the attic, the house, the air in my lungs. I threw a quilt over the flames, tamped it down, coughing through the smoke. And when I turned around, the girl was gone. So was the cold. And behind me from the attic door, Grandma? Emily's voice, small, tired, mine. Epilogue. Jason never asked what really happened. Rachel never pushed for answers. The USB was destroyed. The mirrors never came back. But Emily drew again, bright colors this time, no cages, no scratches, only birds, only sun. And sometimes, late at night, I think I hear music, but it fades. It always fades now, because I ended it, at last. Because some girls can't be saved. But other girls, they can still be protected. The end. You should have let me die, but I didn't, and now she lives.